Hi there. I hope I do not look too white, too pale. This looks a bit too bright for some reason, and it's my cameras, of course. I said I was using my front camera, so that kind of contributes to it. But I hope this is not bad. Honestly, I don't think it's very bad. So, hi there. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, welcome. My name is John. I'm from Nigeria, and on this channel we do book reviews, book talk, bookish things, books, anything books. I am such a lover of books and literature, and I love to share my thoughts on what I read and how they make me feel and what I want to read occasionally. But today is going to be my final catch up with my content that is due, and so it's my July wrap up. And I know this is the end of August, but if I putting this out will mean I am caught up to do my August wrap up next week. So very excited. In July, I read 3 books, which was a decrease from my June wrap up, but it's what it is. I was quite slow last month for some reason. I cannot remember why, and it's not like I had like so much to do, but I was so slow. But yeah, I read 3 books, and the first book I finished, I have physically here, and it was The Ghostwriter by Philip Roth. I really wish I could invert this, but this is what we have. The Ghostwriter by Philip Roth. This is the first book in a it's kind of a book series surrounding a single character called Nathan Zuckerman, and I do not think like all the first I think the first 3 books in the series are like a trilogy of sorts. They are very connected, but it's if you know the author Philip Roth, I do not know too much about him, but I know of some of his books like I Married a Communist, The Plot Against America, which was in that New York Times video, the top 100 list. Then there's this one, I cannot remember the name, but all I think the entire those books, while not related to this one entirely, it's kind of a long, like 9 book series, I think, surrounding the character Nathan Zuckerman. But the first 3 are really like the books which are connected together. I bought this because I wanted a taste of the author, even before like knowing about the New York Times thing. I just heard it was one of the great American ones. I did not know it was part of like the series, or it was a series, but I started it, and yes, we follow a character, Nathan Zuckerman, who is going to visit like this writer who is like his favorite writer of all time. And so he gets like an invitation from the writer Lunoff, E.I. Lunoff, to come over to his like very secluded living place. I don't want to say house because it's kind of like a space that is detached from like cities, and like it's set in a very secluded part of a certain state which I cannot recall now. But the author invites him over. He kind of sends his work to the author, and the author like invites him for kind of a dinner, and he goes to visit the author. And this is set in the 50s, early 50s. 1953 is where the book kind of begins, and what we essentially get is the portrait of like what it means to be like a fanboy, fangirl over like somebody, let's say an author who is very dear to you. And I really liked that aspect. It's the book kind of covers a few things, from that idea of what it means to be like in love with somebody who has created art that is so dear to you. We get that portrait here, but also our main character Nathan he's a Jew, and the author he goes to visit, his the mystery writer, is a Jew as well. So there's this look at like what it means to be a Jew also in this novel, and he comes from like a very small town, Newark. I think that's what they say it's called. I think that's how it's pronounced, Newark. I don't know where Newark is located, but he goes to visit the idol who stays in. This is described that it stays 12,000 feet up in the mountains in the Berkshires. So like Nathan, he's from Newark, goes to college, and eventually moves to New York. So we meet him when he's 23, and kind of like a starting up writer, like doing little magazines. He has like a few magazine publications under his belt, but nothing like really big. And so that's where we meet him. And it's kind of the author who is dreaming to make it, going to see his idol. And so I really like the exploration that Rod gives of like when we meet our idols, what are they like? And so we see a lot of that here. We see that aspect of like learning. It comes to learn about this idol and how like, because it's an idol who, while he's a famous and renowned author, he's not really a popular author in a sense. He's, for me, if I were to describe him like as an author that I know in real life, or like that we can, or that we generally know, I want to kind of say, I know this is not the best description, but I'll say Annie Ernaux, who I have not read her, but I know people who have read her. And the thing is, when she won the Nobel Prize, people were reading her, but I would not say that there was a lot of people I was seeing talking about her, because I'd been in like the bookish space for a long time. And I think there are very many other authors that might fit this description of like the author who is praised and very critically acclaimed, but not very popular in that sense of like Stephen King popularity. And that is what we get here. He goes to see this author, and we come to learn that this very critically acclaimed author, who, while he's known, he's not widely known. We come to see like what feeds his art, what makes up this art that the main character Nathan has fallen in love with over time, because we get like descriptions and descriptions of devotion here that I was so pleased to read, because it reminds you of yourself as a reader sometimes when you think of like the authors who you love so much. And I think of like Sigrid Nunez, and when I was reading this, I was just thinking, wow, this is really how I am with her. But it's like, in this case, he gets to be in the same space with the author, like gets to interact with him. The author gets to ask him questions, and it's just like, how do you behave, how do you compose yourself when you are in the presence of like such greatness, quote unquote. And it's like when he I think the author himself, when he asks of like when Nathan kind of inquires into the author's life, the author replies saying something like that all he does is that he turns things around. And we get his wife also in the novel. At different points she shows up, and it's kind of seeing how somebody who is so dedicated to their art kind of, it's how the art itself kind of obliterates everything that surrounds their family life and the problems that this creates for them. And so it kind of feels like a character, like a person, which is Nathan, the main character, intruding on this author's life and space, because he gets to, this book is like he gets to bear witness to the author's life. And although he goes to see the author for like a day or two, he kind of like sees the combination of years in that day or two in just what plays out around the author's life. And that aside, on the point where it looks at like I would say, I don't know if to say the Jewish experience, but it kind of looks at that idea of what it means to be a Jew, and how like identity fits art, because it is mentioned here over time by the main character when in analysis of the author's work, Lonoff, that is the idol, because like I said, the idol is a Jew, and he speaks to how like reading the author's work was kind of like seeing his experience. And so we get that, I kind of get that what's the word I'm looking for? You kind of get that look here. But Nathan, who grew up in a town where it was mostly like Jewish people, very small town like Newark, he eventually moves to New York, the big city, and that's where he's trying to make it. And so we learn as the book progresses that he is actually going to see this author because he is at like a writer's retreat, sort of, after fleeing New York because of a scandal, not a massive scandal, but because of something that happened. And I'm trying not to say too much, because it's a very short book, like 176 pages. But also, I have a big writer project on something related to this author, so I'm saving my thoughts for that. But just to say, I really like this book. Like, it's the humor is something else. Like Rod's voice. Well, I would say the style, the writing style is not like, I would not say I was, let's say, heavily blown away by the writing style, but I would say that the voice took me. Like, the voice really took me because I was so impressed by how singular his voice is, like the humor in his voice, in his writing. There's a place where the idol kind of tells Nathan that while Nathan does not have, like, let's say, the most interesting style he has read in a while, he has like the most interesting voice he has read in a while. And when he describes voice, I want to read that passage. Where is it? But I cannot find the quote now. I did not tab this book. I did not want to. I kind of stopped highlighting my books and tapping them, except like it's. I feel it's very essential, and there were really a lot of points I like in it, but I did not tab it, so I did not save it. But yes, I quite like the novel. It's very simple storytelling with like these occasional segues in the writing that are not like too far off, but that give you more insight into a character's life, which I really appreciated from a writing standpoint, because it gave me something as a writer to learn and to kind of insert and to kind of impute into my own writing. And I don't know, it's after I saw it here that I know it has always been done in fiction, but it just became so much like clearer in my mind. And so I really liked this book. I read it in like 4 days, which is the fastest I've read anything this year. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I'm currently reading the second book in the series also already. So yeah, I'm enjoying my intro into Philip Roth a lot. I hope my thoughts were organized. I know I just went so many places, but it's just a book. So the next book I finished was one of the books I wanted to read, like when I joined the bookish space. And it was a YA novel I found out through one of, I'll say, BookTube's OGs, like from my time when I discovered, which was Paperback Dreams, who I watched compulsively. I was so in love with her channel then. And this was her favorite book at the time. And it was Radio Silence by Alice Osman, the author of Heartstopper, the Heartstopper book series, which I have actually read. I forget sometimes. But Radio Silence, this is a YA novel that follows Frances. I cannot pronounce her surname, but you know, it's those like typical YA type surnames where it feels a bit too extra and everything feels so extra in YA novels. But yes, we follow Frances. She's 16 and in her final year of, I think, high school. Yes, final year of high school, and we learned that she's a straight A student, top of the class. She's head girl also, so like really the it student, and her dream has always been to go to a certain university. I think one of the Ivy League universities. I'm thinking Yale, but it might not be Yale, but that's always been her dream. So we just follow Frances, who, while she's like this straight A student in school, very nerdy, and she just seems to every other student to be very nerdy, she's actually very quirky on her, like on her own time. She likes art, she likes to draw. And so Radio Silence, the title of the novel, comes from a kind of a sort of podcast web series described in the book, which is one of Frances's favorite web series. It's a very small web series that follows a narrator who, like, the gender identity is unknown by the viewers, because it can pass off as maybe a guy or a girl, because of the effects he uses on the voice. But eventually we come to, Frances gets to meet a certain boy. His name is Aled Last. I told you the surname thing is so like on in these YA books, but his name is Aled Last, and he had a twin sister who Frances used to know, but its sister kind of like ran away from home, and so she meets Aled, and it's kind of a little friendship at first, but eventually it just kind of blossoms into this very major friendship, like that kind of singular friendship you discover in your lifetime. And I loved it so much, in the sense that it's like so it's a thing I have desired for a long time. It's kind of thing that you just want to have, and just seeing it play out on the page, like the chats, late night chats into the night. So I don't know when this is set. It's set in like sometime circa let's say 2016, 2017. I don't know when Tumblr was still available, but not early Tumblr days, but Tumblr was still available, and Facebook for like young people was still major. So that's when it is set. And so she kind of meets Aled, and we eventually get to learn that Aled, after like after months of them conversing and just like growing in friendship, by accident she gets to learn that Aled is Radio Silence, the creator of the show she has fangirled over for so long. And so like the book just progresses from there. So it's Radio Silence, the things related to the show and things related to their friendship, and it's really a book that looks at like the power of friendship, sort of found family also, and it's very warm, very touching. I don't know why I picked it up last month. I was just like in the middle of the night, on days where I'm feeling very so, I always get this urge to like start a new novel. It has been happening a lot, and that's why I started a book the other day, even though I already have like six other books I'm currently reading. So it just happens like that, and that was one of the nights I started Radio Silence. And I just remember that, wow, in my early like foray into like the bookish space, when I was slowly coming to learn about like the existence of this kind of books and so many other books, like one of my favorite creators really loved it, and I was like, I know I'm really past like the YA stage, because I've noticed that the year has gone by. I'm not even that old. I'm just a few years like behind the like 2 years behind the YA stage, but I just like kind of grew out of it for some reason. So, but I really enjoyed this one. It has all the YA writing that you will kind of that will kind of annoy you, but I when I come to these books, I just have my mind set on like this is the expectation. So the idea of the writing does not really like make it too annoying for me. It has really short, like compulsively readable chapters as well, which I really liked, and I enjoyed the friendship in it. I enjoyed like just the found family aspect to it, and that was really the highlight of the novel for me. I gave it 3 stars, and yeah, when I read the Ghostwriter last month, I thought that was like the highlight of the month, and it was a highlight of the year, to be honest. But the on the last day of the month, I decided to read Lie With Me by Philip Besson, because it was like 100 pages, and I was like, I want to try to finish something in one day. And I read it, and I finished it in like a span of like less than 24 hours. In Lie With Me, we follow a man who is kind of telling us like a very significant love story, maybe the most significant love story of his life. And so he starts out at the 80s, and it starts out when he meets a boy named Thomas, or Thomas. I don't know how that name is pronounced, but he meets a boy named Thomas. We see that it's set in a time, the 1983, where like it's the early 80s in, I think, France. I'm trying to be very sure. I don't know why I just forget places, although I never forget like the story. Most like a 90% of the detail of a book is always in my head. Sometimes it's just the story, and I do not even forget names. It's the setting I forget. I don't know why, but it is set, I think, somewhere in France. I'm almost very sure. And yes, it's a time where like gay relationships are not very like accepted, so it's more secretive. And he meets Thomas, and they kind of form this very unlikely relationship that is hidden from their families, hidden from the world, and it's kind of their separate thing. And it's a relationship that happens in a summer. It's a very fiery summer, think Call Me By Your Name type summer. And yes, so it's that kind of romance, and it just like changes Thomas's life, changes his life. Like it just brings something fresh to their life. And what we see is him telling us about this relationship and how it will come to affect like both their lives as the years will go by. And so when we meet them in 1983, it's one summer, and so we learn of the relationship. But early on, with, I think they are at they are close to the end of like their high school years. But early on, we learned that the relationship is kind of not going to like be like a long-term thing, because we early on we see the main character, he's kind of an excellent student in school, and Thomas, it's not like he's not excellent, but we do not get that impression that he's made for education, if that makes sense. And so it's expected by the main character's family that he will go to college, he would like be a very great person one day, because of how his grades speak of him, because of how his like aura speaks of him in the sense of like the world in general. And even when they meet, when he meets Thomas initially, he tells us that there's something Thomas tells him that, and it's a quote that is maybe my favorite quote from the novel, and it says that because you will live and we will stay. And so it is just kind of a prophecy in the sense of everybody towards the main character, that he's made for more, he's not made for the small town, because it's set in kind of a small town, and so it's not really a very known town. So it's that kind of thing that everybody can see that you are going to get out of here, you are going to escape this space that feels kind of like a cage for like the people of the town. And so, and even Thomas kind of sees that is most likely going to fall into that fate, but he foresees it for the main character, who has been told, but for some reason it does not get to become clear to him. But yeah, it's just that kind of thing. And it's so we just see how the relationship plays out over the summer, how it just adds something new to both their lives. And even Thomas, who is more reserved at the beginning, and who is more like, let's say we can think of the more masculine nature and the more like very internal misogynistic male behavior, a lot of it harbored inside of him somewhere. It just gets to loosen up more as they go along. And it's just really one of those love stories that just like, for this book, it did not just hit me in the sense, I think the love story was there, but it was not the love story that hit me. It was just as the book progressed, and in the future we get that 1983, then we get the future, we get them when the main character, because at the beginning of the novel starts with a very little prologue where we learn that it's already an established and a famous writer, and so it's just kind of giving us the backstory behind his life. And it's not in a broad sense of thing. I think this novel accomplishes so much in its very short 100 pages, because like from the first portion of the book where we learn of the beginning of his life, it's nice, it's breezy, but the later portions, when we learn about the later parts of like the things that transpires between his life and Thomas' life, and between his life and Thomas's life, it's that I think that's where like the book kind of excels, because those parts are far shorter, but it's like everything happens. And I don't want to say too much, because like this book, I cried. I cried after reading it. I was hit in so many places. At the beginning, I kind of found the writing like to be, there was flavor, but I did not think like there was good flavor. You can just, when writing is good, you know writing is good. But at the same time, I was just like, oh, it's going to be probably a book that, yes, I can appreciate that undeniably the writing has substance to it, but it did not give me much. And that's why I was talking about the relationship aspect, and it was nice, but it was not everything for me. But as the book moves, oh my god, there are so many points that just pop up more in the writing that just floor you. It is not much, but what it does in its little, I cannot explain it. I cannot give away so much. This is a short novel. You can read it in a day. If you're a fast reader, you can read it in like 3 hours. I'm not a fast reader, so that's part of it. But oh my god, I was moved so much. I was so moved. I was so touched of, and it just like Philip Besson, what he did with his story, how he told the story. This is how you know a skilled writer. He had 100 pages to tell us something, and like he gave everything. He gave everything, but emotionally, the emotional like peaks in this novel, like they hit you in the chest. I felt like I was punched I felt like I was sucker punched, and it was just so moving and so touching. And it is one of the highlights of the year, definitely. I give this 4.5 stars. And yeah, the day I finished that novel, I cannot tell you what it was. I cannot tell you how I was a mess for the next hour on the floor. I was just like sobbing, just recounting it in my head. It's just the way it just like it kind of sneaks up on you. It goes slowly, and you think, wow, this is nice. It's a nice story. Nothing much is happening, but then everything just culminates towards the end, and you are finished. But yeah, I really liked that novel. I don't know if my thoughts on the novel does not do much for you, let my feelings explain it. I do believe in that, in terms of like us who do this, talking about books to people on the internet. Like sometimes where we are not able to say much, we hope our feelings, which we expressed so openly, is able to do the work to convince you. And yeah, this is one of the times where you see a popular book occasionally, a book that is making all the rounds, and it's like good for this. But I have not been too disappointed with like those popular books. I would not say this is not a TikTok book, but it's kind of just a bookish community like book that it's not so big, but it has its name out there. And yeah, I was very pleased with this novel. And so that was all I read in July. I hope this was not too long. I always find that when the books are not much, I talk so much. But yeah, I really mostly enjoyed the books I read, and I think that was the month that was the month of my birthday. So yes, I solid reading month. If you have read any of this, please let me know. And yeah, what are you currently reading? We have a few days left in the month, and so the whole big book summer thing I did is going to come to an end very soon. And I started reading Anna Karenina sometime, sorry, back. I started reading Anna Karenina sometime, is it this month? I can't remember, but wow, I have dreams to finish it before the month is over. But this is what I have left. This hefty 600 plus pages left. I don't know, my dreams are seeming like they are too big. They are seeming like too big dreams, so I don't know, but I'm enjoying it so far. Tolstoy is very, very worthy, but story wise, big cast of characters, so I'm enjoying this decently so far. If I make it, you guys will find out in the next wrap up, but if I don't make it, well, you will know as well. And also, I'm still reading Henry David Thoreau, the philosopher, Wording and Civil Disobedience. And heady philosophy, not like, I would not say the most heady, but language wise, you will have to take this one really slow. And I think that's how it probably has to be with philosophy books. You just have to take it really slow and process it. But I am enjoying it for the most part, when it is not like trying to crack my brain. It's sitting with me, and the overall point, it's sitting with me. So yeah, those are the two physical books I'm reading at the moment. But I'm reading like 3 or 4 other things along with this. Something is wrong with me, I'm sure. But yeah, that was my reading for July, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.